Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. Today's guest is Michael Sasaki. Yay! Michael is a figure skater and a actor who has been seen in Shameless as well as Cobra Kai, and he has just produced and starred in his own short film, Masaru. Welcome, Michael.
Yay! Welcome to me.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Welcome to you. This is great.
Thank you.
So, I obviously gave you a little bit of an intro, but we'd love to kind of know some of your background. So, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Monterey Park, California. And I was kind of raised all over, actually. We lived in Walnut for a little bit, and then we moved to Torrance. And then now I'm in Los Angeles.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So SoCal born and raised.
Yes, I am a native.
Amazing. And did you ever move outside of LA and then come back, or have you always kind of just been here?
Yeah. Actually, I for college, I went to SoCal University of America. And
Awesome.
so I was in Aliso Viejo for about 4 years.
Mhm.
And then after I graduated, I stayed in Aliso Viejo and then kind of like moved around to Mission Viejo for a few years. And then I finally made my transition up here to LA in like 2000. I don't even remember because I'm so old. 2009.
That's not that old. Or not that long ago, I should say. So what made you come to LA? Obviously, you've been in Southern California for like your whole life, but was the industry what drew you specifically to LA, or?
It's interesting. Yes. So the short answer is yes, it was acting that I wanted to pursue up in here in LA. Because when I was down in Orange County, I was already starting to come to LA for auditions for commercials. And I was like, oh my God, the drive is horrible. I have to, just for like a 5-minute audition, I'm driving like an hour and a half, you know? So it became really taxing. And so it's like in my heart, I was like, I got to move to LA, But what brought me to LA was an internship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in Santa Monica at the SGI headquarters.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was there for a year.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's a big internship.
A big internship. So that's what initially drew me out to LA. And then afterwards, I tried to figure life out. Went back on the road. When I say on the road, on the seas.
Mm-hmm.
As I was a performer on cruise ships.
Right.
So I was doing that and then came back to LA.
Amazing. So you mentioned briefly there about being a performer on cruise ships, and that was specifically skating.
Yes.
I know that figure skating has been since a young childhood, has been kind of your passion and career for so long, and before you really dove into acting as well.
Yeah.
And I know you also still teach. Can you kind of give a little bit of history as to like why skating? I mean, it's such a unique, form of creativity.
Yeah. I saw figure skating on TV for the first time in like 1990 something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like Christy Yamaguchi winning the Olympics.
Yeah, it's Christy.
And yes, Christy. Sorry, can I do a little side note? If I were ever to be a drag queen, my name would be Christy Grab My Coochie.
Yes! Christy, grab my coochie. Come to the stage, please.
That's right.
Liv, I'm sure she would give you a shout out on Twitter or Instagram. That's amazing.
That would be amazing. And then I'll be your guest as Christy Grab My Coochie, and then we'd have to do another podcast. It'd be amazing.
Love.
So I saw her win the Olympic gold, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that looks really cool. Number one, jumping in the air and then landing on one foot on a piece of metal. And then two, what does it feel like, winning something like that? And so I started skating when I was 10, which is a little late for most kids.
Skaters.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kids start like when they're in the fetus, But for me, I was a late bloomer. But I was quite a natural because I was a roller skater roller blader. So I kind of had this natural ability with my balance. And so as soon as I started skating, I was glued to the ice, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like it was just this feeling that I had in my body. I was like, this is what I need to do. And so I started taking private lessons, and one thing led to another, and I was already, in this competition costume doing competitions. And Then 4 years later, I won the Junior Olympics at 14, which then led me to many more national championships in the senior level. And I competed to the equivalent of Olympic trials.
Wow.
And then college hit, and that's where my focus shifted a little bit, and that's when I really just focused on my education.
Right.
And then realized, okay, Olympics is not going to be my path. And then that's when I decided to enjoy my skating without the pressure and perform in ice shows.
Okay.
And found a really amazing company with B-Tech Productions and Royal Caribbean, and performed on cruise ships, believe it or not. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
What was it like being on cruise ships and kind of constantly moving or kind of progressing on these different, cruises, if you will, but then not necessarily having like a home base other than kind of, because how long would you be out on these cruises?
You'd be out like, yeah. So cruise ship life, you're out for like 6 months at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. You leave home, you have a room on the ship for 6 months. That's your home. And it's a tiny room, and so then when you come back home, you have about 2 months, on land before you go back out for another 6 months.
Okay.
So that kind of continued for about like 5 years or so, 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
So it's really, you have to make your heart your home. It's cheesy, but home is where you're at. Yeah.
Wow. Well, at least it's not too bad. It sounds like you would at least have some downtime. 2 months is a decent amount of time to kind of like reset before you go out.
Totally.
I thought it was kind of like, you jump on one cruise ship and then like you're home for 2 weeks, and then you jump on another cruise ship and then go.
Some people do that actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I didn't really know about the Olympic background or Junior Olympics background and everything. So that's amazing. I'm sure did that bring out kind of a competitive spirit in you to really kind of fight? It sounds like you really had to constantly work on
Oh yeah, I'm a competitive person by nature. Mm-hmm. You should see me on the freeway. I'm kidding. I'm a very peaceful driver.
Don't lie to the audience. It's okay. We all get a little mad on the freeway,
right?
Especially in LA.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm kind of a competitive person to begin with. So skating, competing in figure skating was like the best avenue for me. Yeah. And, you not only you learn skating, you learn life lessons. It's like when you get last, at a competition, how do you motivate yourself to move on to the next competition? When you get first at a competition, how do you stay humble?
Right.
And so I had to really navigate through those experiences. And I feel like it's made me a better person because of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I know my tendency, I'm very competitive as well. And it's funny, I've talked to like other friends of mine and everything, and they're like, really, you're competitive? I like would never have guessed. And I was like, do we know each other? Because it definitely is something that I've had to learn how to be more humble, but like you said, also know that like if you beat someone or win, it's great, but not necessarily just taking that and kind of running with it, but also understanding that every competition, right, there's going to be a winner and a loser, or they're in between, but really having the compassion for that other person who has lost, but knowing that like also you're never a moments away from like potentially being also that the loser or coming in second, third, fourth, whatever it may be. So going into like your acting side of things, kind of what was it that got you into acting? Coming, obviously you said you went to SUA, coming out of college, and then coming to LA, kind of what was that progressive move, if you will, for yourself?
Yeah, sure. Let me actually back up because I was really into being in front of the camera at a very young age.
Okay.
When I was like 9 or 8, I would take my dad's camcorder, 8mm camcorders.
Yes.
And I would make little movies, So I really had this zest for being in front of the camera, at that age. And then it wasn't until high school when Titanic came out and Leonardo DiCaprio was the thing.
Right.
Did I want to just all of a sudden be like him, And so then I would take the camcorder and make little movies with my friends. So I always had this desire to perform in front of a camera, but didn't really think to pursue it until after I retired from skating in shows.
Okay.
So it was just like, if you will, a seed that was just growing slowly inside of me.
Okay.
And I knew there was going to be a point where I had to face it. And I remember just telling people throughout my life, oh, one day I'm going to be an actor. One day I'm going to be an actor. One day, and that moment came after my parents passed away about 4.5 years ago. It was kind of like this like moment in my life where I had to ask myself, like, what are you going to do with your life? Life is too short.
Right.
And that's when I had this kind of reality check and realized that this voice that was inside of me all this time of wanting to be an actor must come out now. So that's been my journey, with acting over the many, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. I think there always is like that one point in our life where we really kind of have to decide, like, what is it that truly makes me like happy?
Yeah.
And what do I really want to do?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's scary and we don't want to necessarily go there, but the decision is really ultimately ours, And I think that what I found is too often people don't want to take that leap.
Right.
So they just kind of settle for whatever it is that they're doing as a means to just get by.
Yeah.
But obviously you're not one of those people, which is amazing, and really, took the daunting jump into acting, especially because it is, once again, a very, very competitive, career, and especially living in Los Angeles where everyone is an actor just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.
So through all of that, kind of what are some of the personal struggles? You did mention that you lost your parents about 4 years ago, but going through all of this, what have been some personal struggles that have really helped you to become more creative in your fields?
That's a really good question. I think for me, it's really looking at like the thing that makes me suffer the most.
Wow.
The thing that makes me suffer the most is, quite ironically, the thing that makes me the most creative.
Wow.
And so, for example, I just finished shooting my short film.
Yes.
Masaru.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the whole idea of this story is about, going against conformity to honor your voice.
Wow.
It's and that's like my life. I feel like my whole life I've tried to seek validation from the outside, from my peers, from, my work environment, everybody, like everybody validate me, but I couldn't validate myself. And that was my life struggle. I have a whole laundry list of reasons why I couldn't validate myself. We all do, So, but interestingly enough, it was those reasons that helped me develop the story.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess, in the short end of it, it's my sufferings that are actually my biggest allies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that being said, kind of what would you characterize as your greatest strength and ultimately like your greatest weakness when it comes to doing your creative outlets, whether that is figure skating or acting?
Well, I think I'm still just trying to discover that. That's like
Aren't we all?
Yeah. It's really hard to pinpoint what those things are, but I think the opportunity for me is that over the past few years, I've been really recognizing that I am very black or white, and that I forget to look in the gray.
Okay.
And very extreme, this or that. And I think when we can look at a situation with a large scope, it helps us detach from this narrow view of it has to be this way, and I think being attached to one particular outcome can really cause us stress and, tremendous amount of pain and suffering because we are just focusing on one attachment, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I think I've been really learning to make that tendency of my life become my strength, which is learning to be open-minded, which is learning to self-reflect, learning to stay humble. So I think, just navigating through those weaknesses and strengths, I think help us develop ourselves and our awareness even more. So I know that wasn't really kind of a direct answer to your question.
No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, well, it kind of goes to what you said, right? Which is the struggle of it's almost like your greatest strength are those struggles because they create like such the creative side comes out of those struggles,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And your ability to create, like Masaru, your short film was derived only because of your own story to go through these personal struggles and, you know, like your life's journey and being, you know, kind of going against the grain and not being what society deems as, you know, like, oh, that's right. Or that's male, that's binary, that's whatever.
Right.
You know, but really kind of breaking that.
Yeah.
No, I love that. So you
Thank
definitely
you.
answered the question.
Oh, thank you.
You know, so with the creative sphere that you're in as an actor, kind of, you know, has there ever been a moment where you feel like, man, I've really like made it? I know a lot of people say like, you know, it's a progress of things, but has there ever been a moment for yourself where you felt like, damn, I really made it?
Maybe not in those ways that we think, you know, one feels like, oh, we've made it.
Yeah.
But I've definitely had moments where I've stopped and talked to my, you know, 15-year-old self that was making movies, you know, with the camcorder.
Right.
And, you know, address him and be like, this is where you're at.
Wow.
You just made a short, you know, you did a couple of roles on TV during a pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, this is where you're at. So I don't know if I would call that I made it, but maybe I'm making it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that for so many of us, it is kind of this constant like struggle, right? To keep on moving forward.
Yeah.
And so the idea of making it is never really just kind of like a bar.
Right.
You know, like,
or destination. Like, I'm here.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Because if it is, then where else is there to go?
Exactly.
You know, but I think that more than maybe making it, it's like getting the role on Shameless and getting the role in Cobra Kai and doing your own projects are like the pegs in this board that you're able to go like, wow, like I've had things that I'm like have been working towards, and really been able to be like proud of those things.
Yeah,
which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I definitely had a moment where when we started shooting Masaru, I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. This was literally in my head floating around, you know, for 2 years. And finally I produced it onto paper, and then found a team. And then, you know, there was a moment where like, I can't believe this is manifest. You know, I would have never imagined even a year ago that I would have be doing this at this moment in my life. So yeah, it's been very just encouraging.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. What brings you the most happiness now, if you will, in 2021 versus when you started out as an actor?
Ooh, these are deep questions.
Yes.
Are you sure this is not therapy?
Therapy with Alan Sasaki.
That's right. I recommend it, everyone. I think when you are starting anything, you always have this optimism and maybe a little unguided, right? It's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then you face reality. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take this to get there.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I did come into acting like, oh yeah, I'm just going to walk on set and be this actor.
Wow.
And these past 4 years have really humbled me, you know, and have taught me that the process is so important. Because girl, I hate the process. Okay. I just want it to be there.
Done. Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
And something about the process really irks me.
Okay.
Because it's in the process is where you have to face yourself.
Wow.
The toiling.
Right. The character building. And
exactly.
The work. Yeah.
And so I think there is this part of me that's afraid to see myself, you know, and you know, maybe it's afraid of failure, you know, or afraid of the responsibility of success. I don't know, you know, but there is this kind of backing away from the process. So I've been working on that and really learning to appreciate that it's the process and what you do in the process that really determines the outcome. You know, so if I want to get to the finish line, you know, if I want it to be that, then I need to focus on the process.
Right.
You know, so I think that has shifted from when I first started acting to where I am now. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. No, I think the process is also part of the struggle, but the building points for us to become happy with the way we go about things. Yeah. You know, and I'm guessing as an actor, I'm not an actor myself, but you know, going through the struggles of kind of figuring those things out is actually what brings you joy when you then are able to present it on the screen or, on the stage or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely a process. And I think that in 4 years' time, although it seems very short, there's so much that you can actually kind of learn from like who you've become. I look back 4 years ago and I'm kind of like, oh, wow, you were real full of yourself and not a whole lot going on there, compassion wise or other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that learning to really kind of embrace the process and the struggle is really crucial. So my next question for you is, what is your work ethic like? Being creative is no easy task. So what does it take for you to really do your work? Because you talk about not really liking that struggle or the process of being an actor, like what has your work ethic been like in order to go and like dive really deep into that so you're able to bring out, the characters that you're playing?
That's a really great question. I think over the years I had to kind of mold my style of work. Recently, it's been my key word that I have as an actor going into any script is empathy. As a person who practices Buddhism, I strive to have empathy and compassion for those around me.
Right.
And so I feel the same for my characters. How much can I understand this person without judging them?
Right.
How much can I create from this empathy of this person, right? It's actually something I learned from Meryl Streep. She talks a lot about empathy,
right?
And she's someone I really look up to.
Yeah.
She's a phenomenal actress and tells a great story because I feel like she really works hard at trying to understand and empathize with the person she's trying to portray.
Right.
Because we have a responsibility to tell a story. We have a responsibility to tell a story, and if we don't dig into that, then we're not doing the story service, right? So for me, it's right now, it may change in a year, it may change in 2 years. It's really sitting down and really trying to develop empathy for this character that I'm playing. I have to, it's hard sometimes because I feel like I have like mini ADD. So when I go to sit down to learn my lines, my hand just reaches for my cell phone, so I have to make it a point to, put my phone in a different room when I'm studying and learning my lines. Yeah.
So as an actor, there's many kind of methods. Is there something specific that you have really honed in on in order to do that work other than just putting your cell phone in the other room? But, like you're talking about, the great Meryl Streep, there's, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of actors go kind of for method acting. So it's really kind of being that character that you are and coming from, like you said, a place of empathy. Is there something that, or a training that you've had specifically that's really kind of given you the ability to go really deep into the characters that you're playing?
I think for me, it's about, putting yourself in an imaginary circumstance, right? Living in this imaginary world. And there's I work with Lewis Smith. He's an amazing actor and coach. And he has a lot of tools, which actually pull from a lot of the school of thoughts.
Okay.
So it's not this like one way,
right?
But I think the biggest thing for me is being present. And what keeps me present is listening. Listening puts me in a place where I'm authentically responding to the other person. Right. If I'm responding based off like my lines in my head and how I'm going to do it and all that stuff, then it's really going to come off rehearsed. It's going to come off not authentic at all.
Right.
So for me, I think one key technique, I think it's the miser technique, where you do like repeats, where you go back and say green, 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 green. And in the process, the way you say it changes.
Right.
And so when you say it differently, the other person, if they're paying attention to how you're saying it, then they will shift and respond differently. And then you'll respond to that. So I think for me, as long as I'm listening to the other person, even though I know what their lines are, there's something about the way I respond that feels authentic. You know, if I'm not listening, it's so visible on camera.
Interesting.
You know,
okay.
it'll show that I'm in my head, you know, especially in auditions, you know, when stakes are high and you are nervous and you're jittery and just like, oh my God. If you can't focus in that moment, you really come off like you're in your own head.
Right.
And being in your head is a disaster for actors, I think, to me.
Yeah. So that being said, you know, obviously with the pandemic that has just kind of taken its course over the last year and so, being an actor, I think that, you know, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, being in a room with a casting director and like feeling the room, right, and being able to work with them and off that energy and not being in your head, like as you're talking about, has it become more difficult now that you're probably having to do self-tapes and putting in the effort and the work without seeing visually you in your own head without anyone on the other side of that camera?
Right. It's an interesting time right now because, you know, self-tapes still did exist before the pandemic. Of course, right? Yeah. And we would send them in. But the one, I think, disadvantage to us getting used to self-tapes is that we're not exercising the muscle of being in front of someone. And so when we start going back, if we ever do, go back to, you know, live auditions, you don't have those 5 takes at your home in your living room. Right. It's that one time. Yeah. Right. Or, you know, if there's an adjustment, you'll get that second time. Right. But I feel like while it's been great to you know, do like 10 takes on my cell phone, it's also, you know, challenging because if you get used to that, then you won't be able to deliver when it's a live audition or a Zoom live callback, right? You know, like when you have an audience. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
that's great. So that being said, you know, you obviously were able to book, you know, Shameless as well as Cobra Kai during the pandemic. Were those process? Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, Cobra Kai was before the pandemic. Okay. So what happened was we shot in at the end of 2019. Oh, okay. And then for a year and a half, Cobra Kai, I believe, lost their distribution with YouTube. Right. And so for a year, we're looking for
they were in
a platform. Exactly.
Okay, got it.
And so then it finally, you know, made a deal with Netflix.
Doom doom.
Exactly. But yeah, for Shameless, I did do a self-tape during the pandemic. And it was a lot of fun. It was just one of those auditions where I was like, oh my gosh, this is just me. I just have to be me, you know, like I don't need to overthink this. And so that's exactly what we did. You know, I just was myself and I just was a goofball and there we go.
Authentically you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best type of acting though, is that it's a matter of kind of like obviously honing in who you are, but being authentically you shines so bright on the screen. Yeah. Instead of it feeling like, oh, like you said, you can see when an actor is kind of thinking in their own mind or like trying to make it happen, especially if they're doing an accent and it's not their authentic accent.
Not your authentic accent.
Oh yes, love.
Is that forced?
Yes, it's forced. Forced, like the force be with you.
Oh right.
I love it. So, you know, what's one thing that you really learned about yourself working in this industry, however that looks to you? You know,
sorry, can you repeat that again? I was having a bug eye moment spacing out.
Yeah, you're like, oh, wait, what? Yeah, no worries. So, like, what's one thing that you've learned about yourself working in this industry for the last 4 years?
Oh, gosh. That I am so full of shit. You know, I think that's the hard question to answer because I learned that I put my hand over my face as I'm talking this whole interview.
I'm like, we can't hear you. Say it again, please.
That's a nervous gesture. I'm not nervous, I promise. No, I think one challenge in my life is to really own myself. That's just been a common theme throughout my whole life. You know, I grew up as a really self-conscious Japanese American closeted queer kid. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not doing the whole blaming thing, but my journey was just always feeling different and not being happy about that. feeling shame for feeling different, you know? And so it's funny that, you know, someone with that kind of tendency would choose acting, you know, in a world where you're judged all the time for your performance,
right?
You know? So for me, I think I've really had to learn to do the work to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
But I feel like since I started becoming an actor, I had to really pay more attention to those inner things, you know, like, why am I freaking out because I, you know, did a bad audition? Like, why am I so upset? Like, what's at the core of that? You know, why am I overly nervous in this setting? Like, why do I have social anxiety in this setting? Like, what's at the core of it? Right. And so for me, I had to really work on this, you know, changing that kind of self distortion that I have about myself. And it's funny, acting did help, is helping with that kind of self-awareness. So I guess it's a journey, you know, and that'll keep continuing. You know? So
definitely. I think so. You touched on the fact that, you know, you're, you know, Asian American or Japanese American, and also queer and a part of, you know, the LGBTQIA plus community. As like an actor and someone that is on screen, you know, do you almost feel there's a responsibility to kind of speak out and have a voice in that realm?
Absolutely. I feel like that's my life's mission, you know, and that's what Masaru is all about, you know, is putting a Japanese American queer male at the center, right, and making him the hero, right, because that's what I didn't see growing up, right. You know, I didn't see me as the hero. I always saw myself as the side guy, as the weak guy, being represented in the media, right, you know. So it's absolutely my mission to foster an environment, projects, a mentality, whatever you call it, foster a world where Japanese American queer males or women are not marginalized. Right. No.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're aware, but you know, the new teaser for I think it's Shang-Chi, which is the first Asian American Marvel character, is going to be released. Yes. As well as, you know, Mortal Kombat, which just came out and has actually skyrocketed and is the #1 film over the weekend on its premiere weekend and everything. Wow. Yeah, beating out many other films that kind of came before it. That's which awesome. Is incredible. So, you know, with so many, you know, and Crazy Rich Asians obviously was like a huge hit, you know, a couple years ago, but with more and more Asian representation being on screen and in film and TV, you know, and as you said, really kind of also showing, you know, the beauty, if you will, of Asian American queer folks on television. You know, how do you express yourself or kind of make it known? Like, do you consider yourself to be an activist or someone that really stands up for these things other than just the work and being authentically you? Or do you really, you know, are you out there kind of being the proponent of, you know, like Stop Asian Hate, you know, that has been going on for over years, you know, now, but has really kind of come to the fore in this last few months, really?
I think I do vocalize my support for, you know, Stop Asian Hate and things that are happening right now. And even when, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement really started to take off last year, I'm still, you know, trying to figure out whether I call myself an activist or a humanist or what, you know. I think it's a process for me. But like I just mentioned, you know, like my mission is to really bring the voices of the marginalized to the forefront through media. And so for me, that's an important quest. Yeah. Yeah. And so I hope that in itself will, you know, show through action. Right. Yeah, I think I'd like to say there's a part of me that's like feels like an activist, but I think there's a lot of responsibility, I think, in calling yourself an activist. I used to actually call myself a peace activist. But I feel like, I don't know. I think what's really important for me at this juncture in my life is to really advocate for myself in terms of my inner happiness, really fight for my inner happiness. Because if I can't be happy, I'm gonna, be miserable.
Right.
If I can't make myself happy, I will affect others around me in that way.
Right.
So, yeah, this is going deep.
Yes.
We're going
No,
deep.
I appreciate you being so open and honest about it.
Yeah.
With COVID-19, obviously it affected so many people in all types of ways. So, what was it like for you, or what was it for you that kept you going during the 2020 pandemic and into 2021? Obviously you saw success during this time, which is amazing, but I'm sure there was also a lot of struggle, with having the world shut down, and LA is kind of a little bit of a ghost town as well. So, how did you really keep the hope and the momentum going all throughout last year and ultimately into this year?
Well, having an amazing husband, for one, is a great thing, who is so supportive. Hello, Pierrick, if you're listening.
Yes.
And my Buddhist practice, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It's a daily practice. It's not a, once a month thing or a once a week thing. It's a daily practice. And it's a practice to bring out your best self every day.
Right.
Right. And yeah, sometimes you don't bring out your best self, know. But to have something consistent like that every single day was the glue that kept me grounded, or attached or whatever, you know. Last year was difficult. It was really difficult, I think, for all of us.
Right.
I lost, I wouldn't say I lost my job, but, my job came to a stop. I'm also a figure skating coach. And so the rink shut down, Hollywood shut down.
Yeah.
So I was really relying on my husband for my support.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, and speaking about having a husband, in 2021, who is also, a journalist and in this, creative field, how does that work for you guys? I think maybe because we live in LA, we're kind of in this bubble of kind of just acceptance and the ability to be open and gay and, having a husband and partner who is so supportive and incredible. But, how do you shut out the haters, I guess, to keep it real blunt and to the point, because you guys are very open, and I know you just posted a beautiful photo of the two of you with gratitude. Yes. On Instagram. But,
gratitude.
How do you really, stay authentically just the two of you and being not kind of
affected by what's going on?
Thank you.
Yeah. I think, fortunately, I haven't had kind of hater situations, and I feel really grateful for that.
Right.
And I think what really keeps us grounded is I think a couple things. Just communication, always communicating with each other, and then having fun.
That's awesome.
Just keeping it simple, having fun, enjoying each other, and I think when we do that, we keep the perspective broad, and we remind each other what it's really about, and not get caught up in what society is saying and what's happening in the world. And so I think to have a husband that I can do that with and reflect with keeps us grounded and moving forward. Yeah.
Nice. Does being a multiracial couple come into effect at all, or have you had it?
Oh, this is a loaded question. This is a good one. Yeah, we can do podcasts for this one for days.
Because he is French,
Yes.
from France, and you are an American young strapping lad, and you guys are together. How does that work? Because if you look at the history of America, right, and the fact that being an interracial couple, let alone being gay, like that's a whole nother checkpoint.
Yeah.
But being an interracial couple was not really even accepted for like heterosexuals, let alone homosexuals. So kind of how does that work for you? Is there kind of, more to that than maybe meets the eye?
Well, I think it's not so much like a heterosexual, homosexual kind of thing, but more of like you're French and I'm American and our cultures are different.
Yes.
There's on his side of the family, there's so much acceptance, and I love his family, and we're all so close. And my brothers are so accepting, and my community in general, it's so embracive.
Right.
So in that sense, I don't think we struggle with fortunately with those kinds of things, but we do struggle a lot with just the cultural barriers when it comes to food, when it comes to arguments or disagreeing, and like one thing Pierrick has taught me is this culture of apéro, which is I guess like happy hour for French people, if you will. Typically around like 6 to 8 o'clock, you get together with your friends to, snack and have drinks and things like that. Yeah, exactly. And then after you stuff yourself for like 2 hours, you then have dinner at like 9 o'clock. So there's one thing I never understood. Right. It's like, whoa, like, how do you eat so much, And then French people love cheese.
Yes,
so,
fromage.
Yes, fromage. And so cheese has definitely been incorporated into my life. After dinner, Pierrick loves to eat cheese. So he'll bust out the cheese. And I mean, they're like little things, right. It's not like kind of things that won't like ruin our relationship. But it's just like little cultural differences really speak for themselves. And it's good to laugh at.
Nice. Are you lactose intolerant?
I think I am, like slightly, but I think my body doesn't freak out from cheese.
Nice. Yeah. No, I definitely have a lactose intolerance, but it's not to the point where like I get sick or break out hives or anything like that. Yeah. But no, I love cheese. I don't know what it is. It's just like, it's the most delicious thing. But I don't know if you've heard about the blood type diet.
Yeah. I'm all about blood types.
Yeah. And so blood type, I'm A positive, which tends to be the blood type for a lot of Asian cultural background. Yeah. But in that blood type, it actually says that, you really should be eating more fish and more vegetables and legumes and beans and things. Yeah. And not dairy or meats like chickens and cows and all those things. Yeah. And so, I noticed that, cheese is not something that is really introduced, especially in Japanese culture, until recently. Now they want to put cheese on everything. Yeah. But, I definitely have a little bit of a kickback from dairy, but I love a good cheese. And French have some of the best cheese out there. So
totally
connoisseurs of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Pierrick's A blood type as well, and he doesn't care.
No cares in the world.
Yeah,
He's just going to eat the cheese. I love it. So kind of moving forward and looking into the future, if you will, what are some of the goals or things that you really have kind of set for yourself and say like the next 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years from now? Have you thought that far ahead?
Yeah. I think in terms of like my acting
career,
I would love to definitely be at a place where I'm like a regular on a show, or starring in films. That's like a definite goal I have within the next few years. Right. And continue writing my own projects as well. Life-wise, I want to start a family.
Yay.
So Pierrick and I have been talking about how, the options of starting a family. So, and then, that's kind of our most immediate 3 to 5 year goals.
I love it. So off audio, I know that you mentioned to me that you're currently in the process of kind of taking that step forward and actually buying a home here in LA. So you're really planting roots of your own really in Los Angeles.
Yes.
How has that process been and everything? Because LA is no easy place to live or to purchase. It's a very expensive city.
Oh yeah. And especially right now, the market is banging.
Yes.
And everyone is, wanting to buy. And it's, it's been a journey because I had to learn a lot within a month.
Okay.
Yeah. Within a short time. And I had to learn what it means to, that it's the seller's market or it's the buyer's market,
Right, those terms, yeah.
And right now it's the seller's market. And so which means that there's less homes that are being sold. And so the sellers have more leverage when it comes to negotiating a price to the house.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
And the buyers have less leverage.
Right.
You know, it's been a journey. The house that we are looking at right now, we're, you know, going on this amazing journey of being patient.
Yes.
You know, it's buying a house is a process.
Yeah.
You know, so lots of twists and turns. But what was your original question?
No, it's just, you know, I think that, you know, planting roots or being here in LA and making, like you said, right, you want to create this family and everything. And so part of that, when you think of like the American dream, whatever that is, you know, is like to have like the white picket fence, the home, the children, you know, that whole thing. So I guess you are kind of taking those steps now towards that, right? By buying this home or in the process of buying a home. Yeah. And so, no, I was just curious kind of what, you know, that the struggles of that have come up, but then ultimately like what it feels like to be a first time home buyer. Yeah. If this is your first time. Yeah.
Well, you know, something interesting, like yesterday, I kind of had this epiphany, this aha moment. I was talking to a friend because I was just venting about the struggles that we were going, you know, through to buy a home.
Right.
I was just like, oh, this is happening. This is going wrong. This is going wrong. And my friend really reminded me that, you know, the home is not the four walls. The home is the relationship you have with your family. That's the true home. And so him just saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so caught up in the physical aspect of buying a home. Right. You know, yes, that's important. We have to do, you know, take all the actions and steps necessary to secure a home. But to just suffer based off of that is really kind of like seeking happiness in a physical thing, right? When that's really like we can have a beautiful home and have really like broken family. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I just yesterday I put into perspective, you know, everything again. Like, okay, it's really about the home that we create between each other, you know, and our hearts. And so I feel better about the whole buying situation right now. Yeah. And we don't have to, you know, if it falls through, it's okay. Right. You know, there's going to be another opportunity. Yeah. Yeah. It's not the end of the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in Buddhist terms, you know, I think that mystically, right, every cause that you're making for this home and having, you know, you and Pierrick building this home together is kind of what really matters most. Right. Like you said, you know, the house itself is great. Yeah. But it really won't be your home until like the two of you are absolutely happy and that you are each valued in that. Right. Exactly. I know you mentioned, you know, before we started recording that, you know, it's like you're not going to settle for less than what we're worth. And honey, we're worth a lot.
Okay.
Oh, so
my life is a treasure house.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Treasure Tower, I meant.
Treasure house, I like it. Treasure Tower, all the things. Yes. I am the physical embodiment of this. Yeah. No, I think it's interesting that you say that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, that, you know, your friend shared that with you, because myself, I really am, you know, chanting, but also just trying to make all the causes I can to purchase a home. But the reality of it is, right, is that you make almost like this bucket list of things that you want this home to be, you know, and the intentions of that. But even this morning when I was chanting, I was really just realizing that, yeah, it's really about making whatever space that is, right, your home. Yes. You know, and the people that are involved in that, and the ability to, you know, have people come over and help to like make this, you know, house into a home. Right. It's what's really crucial, not just the physicality of like, well, I want a 3-bedroom with, you know, 3 baths and a beautiful backyard and, you know, a studio in the back and blah, 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 blah. That's great. But the reality is like you said, there's many people that go into a home or a house rather, and it's not really a home because everything surrounding that relationship or the people in it are just like a mess.
Yeah, totally.
So no, that's incredibly encouraging. I will be sending you all the good vibes that this is the right home for the two of you.
Thank you. And I will for you as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So, you know, if we can go even further into the future, do you have kind of a 15-year goal? And I know that seems long, but the reason I ask is because, you know, as we get older and after kind of seeing the struggles of 2020, I think that, you know, we are given like the opportunity to really kind of like expand our lives, right? In the sense of what our vision is for our lives. And so, 15 years from now, in the long term of things, is really actually not that far from now.
Right.
So do you you said you want to have a family and you want to have this home and all of these things in your career, you're going to be working and everything, but are there things on the horizon, that into the future that maybe Michael isn't really there yet, but you could definitely see yourself doing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I still have this dream in my heart. I shared this with a lot of people many years ago, and I still hold this dream in my heart. But I want to create an institution, an academy of some sort, where of the performing arts.
Oh wow!
Yeah, in Hollywood.
Okay.
Based on the philosophy of humanism.
Wow.
And I think we're in a great time to do that right now, especially how things are really shifting in terms of creed and paradigms that we have about the world. So I always wanted to create an institute about, performing arts and how the arts has the power to change culture and the way we think.
Right.
Whether that's a theater or whether that's a museum or whether that's both. I really want to create that kind of institute. Yes.
That's incredible. No, I love that. I actually went to a performing arts school in high school.
Oh, wow.
And so similarly, it was because of that school that, I ultimately found photography and the arts in general. And it really did shape, like who I am now, because you're amongst peers that, have the respect and understanding for the arts and what it means that you can really, like you said, shape the world through the arts. Because if you think about the advertising that you see and the day-to-day, the logos and the products, but also the fashion and the music that you listen to, the TV shows that you watch, all of that is influenced by the arts, right? And so like you creating something like that and really influencing the next generation of young people to be able to, expand upon like the dignity of life and the ability to really like see each other as like a human being, and respect that, I think would be incredible. Because, I think we get so concerned as society to be stuck on the academia of things like, oh, you got to be smart, so you better, get this GPA, skyrocketing high. But that's just so much pressure. And then it's kind of like, where do the arts, where that isn't, the arts are able to really flourish and grow the creative minds of young people.
Yeah. Think about it. Like whether you call yourself an artist or not,
right?
Like we are all affected by culture.
Yeah.
Whether it's photography, whether it's music, movies, like our society is just moved by it, so there's no escaping it. There's as long as we're human, I think we're creatures of expression, so I think that's an important point. We have to incorporate art into our daily lives, and I think more in our education as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This podcast was really born out of 2020. I, wanted a place to be able to share the stories of individuals that are in the creative arts, and how, through their struggles, their personal struggles and life struggles, they were able to really turn, this negativity or these real hard things into the most beautiful thing. And so the analogy, right, is that of the lotus flower, which, from this nasty gunk underneath the water, right, which you don't see, flourishes this beautiful lotus flower that is just like awe-inspiring, right? And the beauty of the lotus is that it has the simultaneity of both flowering and seeding at the same time. Seeing your career and everything that, you've been able to do, how would you say your lotus has kind of come into bloom, if you will?
My lotus is still floating out in the lake somewhere. No. I think, something that's interesting is my mom always ingrained in me, my late mother, always ingrained in me, that everything is the law of cause and effect in life. That's something she just would always repeat. And I think essentially she was really driving home to the fact that my life is an infinite storehouse of potential.
Wow.
Right? She was teaching me that I was a lotus from the very beginning.
Right.
You know? And so I think with where I'm at in my life, it's really interesting. Sorry, I'm going to come back to the whole buying house situation.
Yeah.
When I spoke to my friend yesterday, he encouraged me to think, how would Daisaku Ikeda, react in this situation or respond in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized for me, what this whole house situation is an opportunity for me to really say what I want and feel worthy of it.
Yes.
Right? And so I think my lotus flower right now is blossoming in a way that is telling the universe that I am worthy of all these things in life, because the messaging that I've had in my life throughout my life as from my childhood to now was that I wasn't worthy, So now I'm at a place in my life where I feel like I'm feeling worthy, and therefore I'm going to go grasp, that achievement in front of me, So, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. And you are so worthy of all those things. And I think that, the messaging that young people in general get, is constantly this like, oh, you're not worthy or you're not good enough or whatever.
Right.
So it is like breaking that and shifting it, right? To really believe for ourselves that like you're worthy and that you're loved. You have the love yourself to be able to like absolutely create these things.
Like with media, like already, like the commercials, they're like you see a commercial and they're saying, you are not good enough until you get this product.
Right.
Right. You need this product.
Absolutely.
So it's like everywhere in our society is pointing to, if you have this, then you're good. Right. So I think that's something we have to really shift in our society.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is like a total tangent, but the idea of being like an influencer, right? That word influence, right, is what advertising has been doing for, centuries. But ultimately now we've made it so tangible on a very localized level, right?
Yeah.
That anyone could be an influencer.
Yeah.
I give you a toothbrush and say, here, please, influence your populace about this toothbrush and how wonderful it is. And, you make like your own little mini advertising campaign out of it. And now all of your followers see that, and maybe some of them buy it, maybe someone don't. But it's like to shift that, right? And to make it so that it's creating value in people's lives and not just selling products or things that we don't technically need, saying that like, you're not worthy of this or your life is not this great, but if you have this, it can be. Yeah. But rather saying like, you are amazing as you are. And then, but this thing can also elevate you. Okay? No, but it is hard.
It's difficult. Yeah.
I think someone who works in the visual field and also works like, in advertising as a photographer, it is difficult because sometimes you think like, I know I'm not doing brain surgery here and I'm not, creating the cause or cure rather for cancer. But at the same time, there also is a responsibility for what we do as creatives,
right? And
sharing either stories or images or video or however that looks to really kind of propel a grander picture of what it means to like create value, not just another thing on like this, line of things that people see every single day. Yeah. So no, I love that. I think that's pretty much it on my end. I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing your story and being here. If our listeners would like to follow you, where can they follow you on Instagram or any social media platform?
Yeah. On Instagram and Twitter, I am at Mike is Ready.
Nice. Mike is Ready. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Alan.
Yes. And we'll see you on the next episode. Woo-hoo! This week's Buddhist quote of the day comes from Michael. Quote, "Each of you has a mission only you can fulfill. If you did not have such a mission, you would not have been born." From Discussions on Youth by Daisaku Ikeda. So this quote really saved his life when he was in college and was going through depression and felt worthless. Feeling like he had a mission gave him purpose. Thank you so much again to Michael Sasaki. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Please go ahead and subscribe, rate us, and write a review. And follow me at Alan Zaki on social media. I look forward to having more amazing creative dialogues on the next episode.